Our class today will be about the concept of khushu. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The concept of khushu, which is a concept that we find talked about a lot in Islamic discourse. So we're going to discuss that today a little bit because there's a lot of questions that come up concerning that, especially a lot of the content that we've talked about over time. A lot of the content that's on my page has to do with neurodivergence. So Muslims that are neurodivergent, Muslims that might have ADHD, might be autistic, etc. You know, the vast spectrum of the various kinds of neurodivergence. So that's not all the content I have, right? But that's a lot of the content is talking about that, and a lot of things we talk about. So one of the topics that comes up in that discussion is this topic of khushu, because some people who have ADHD might find it difficult to apply the concept of neurospicy. I love that. Yeah, might find it difficult to apply the concept of khushu in the salah as it's normally or traditionally taught, as it's taught by a lot of different people. So over time, I've discussed, and there's a video on my page, I think maybe a couple videos, talking about this concept. So over time, I've given different talks or small talks about different ways we can think about the concept of khushu to apply in a more universal way and not just to certain people, because the way that it's usually talked about, it's only easy for certain people to do it like that. But other people that have problems concentrating and stuff like that, they might find it difficult to apply khushu as it's normally taught. So we want to talk about it in depth today, because we've talked about it in bits and pieces here and there, but today we're going to talk about it in a lot of detail. So the first thing I want to mention is, just in brief, so I kind of alluded to it just now in my introduction. So just in brief, wa alaikum salam. What motivates me to teach people here? Because I love sharing the Quran. Alhamdulillah. So in brief, I kind of alluded to the general way that it's usually taught, or the way that it's usually talked about, but I want to explain that a little bit first. And then once I explain that, then that'll give us a better idea of why that can sometimes be problematic for certain people. So usually when the khushu is talked about, it's only talked about in reference to the salah, okay? And we'll see from the verses in the Quran that it's not only with the salah. That's the other beautiful thing about this topic. A lot of times when people talk about this topic in like the popular Islamic discourse, it's usually talked about just in reference to salah. But from the Quran, it's actually a more general quality. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, when it's talked about in reference to salah, usually it's translated something like humility or something of that nature. So the verse that people usually refer to is when it describes the believers in Surah Al-Mu'minun, which is chapter 23. It says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, the believers, truly the believers are successful. الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ, those who are khashi'un in their salah. So that's usually the verse that's referred to when this topic comes about, that those who are khashi'un in their salah. And so khashi'un is usually translated as those who are humble in their salah, right? And so then the discussion comes about, how do you obtain this quality of khushu, of humility in your salah? And so then the way it's explained is, people will say, well, it's to concentrate on what you're saying and to understand the meaning of what you're saying and to concentrate on what you're doing and to not let different thoughts like distract you from the salah. So because that's the way it's usually explained, what ends up happening is certain people who might have issues like concentrating with ADHD and stuff like that, they might feel bad about their salah because they feel like they can't concentrate. So in my very humble opinion, and Allah knows best, I think we need to look deeper into how this is explained and study it more closely from the Quran to open up the concept in a more universal way that is easier for people to apply in general, regardless of what issues that they might struggle with. So that's what we want to talk about today. We want to talk a little bit about some of the deeper meanings of of the idea of khushu'. Okay, so first, what I'll start with is I want to start with some of the Arabic meanings of the word, of the root word. So khushu', the concept of khushu' comes from the three-letter root khasha'a. Khasha'a. Okay? Khasha'a. So this is the root word. Khasha'a. Khasha'a. Kha, sheen, and ayin. I just wrote it with the English letters, just to make it easier. But for those who might know Arabic, I'll also give you the Arabic letters. So this is the root word. Khasha'a. Yeah, thank you for also writing the Arabic letters for sure. So khasha'a is the three root letters. So as we've talked about many times in this class, that the majority of Arabic words that we study can go back to a three-letter root word, right? Sometimes we can go back to 2 letters, sometimes to 4 or 5, but in general, you can go back to the three-letter root and see what the root meaning of the word is, and then that will help to explain how you apply that word in other situations that it's used. But you have to go back to the root meaning. So I'm going to give you from some very famous dictionaries. I just kind of selected and sampled from a few different dictionaries parts of their definitions, just to help us have an understanding of the root meaning of this word. And then we're going to go to the verses in the Quran. So one dictionary explained this word by showing how it's used as a description for certain physical objects. So for example, if you say jidarun khashia, jidarun khashia, if you say a jidar, a wall that is khashia, you describe it, the wall, as having khushu'. So the word khashia, it's important to understand this word because it's going to come up a couple times. It comes from the same root, and it's the noun form of the root word. So khashia, that means it's the noun form of the root word, so that means the one who has khushu', or something that has khushu'. So this dictionary, in order to help us understand this word, what he did was he showed how it's used with a physical object. Jidarun khashia, a wall that is khashia, a wall that has khushu'. What does that mean? So this means in Arabic a wall that collapses, it falls down, and it becomes level with the ground. That's called jidarun khashia, a wall that has khushu'. Okay? So right from the beginning, we see from the first usage that we look at, we see that part of the meaning of the word khushu', khashia, khasha'a, the root words and all the things that come from it has to Hannah, would you do me a favor and mute Christian Crusader so we don't have a debate going on here while people are trying to concentrate on the class? Or Warner, one of you two guys, thank you, please. So right in the beginning, we see that one of the usages of it is for something to fall down and be lowered, okay? Because he says jidarun khashia. A wall that is khashia means a wall that collapses and falls down. Follow me so far? So this is sometimes what they do when you look in Arabic dictionaries. One of the things that they do to help us understand the word is they give us usages of that word when it's used with physical objects or it's used in other ways. And that'll help us by examples, by having examples of how it's used in the language. That will help us understand the deeper or the root meaning of the word. Okay, so the first thing that we look at is in Arabic we say jidarun khashia, a wall that is khashia means it collapsed, but not only collapsed, it's level with the earth. So it's not there, it has no more height, it completely falls down. So like it falls and it's on the earth. Follow me? So that's one meaning of khushu', to collapse, to go down. Another example of the usage of this word in Arabic is al-khashi' min al-ard. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Al-khashi' min al-ard. The khashi', when we say a part of the earth is khashi', al-khashi' min al-ard. When we say a part of the earth is khashi', what we mean is the wind, when the wind blows, it's able to stir it up. It's able to like blow the dust and stuff like that because it's not really solid, it's kind of loose. Okay? So from those first two Arabic descriptions or examples, we can start to get a feel of some of the meanings of the root word khasha'a. It has something to do with falling down or lowering, and it has something to do with being like easy, malleable, because the wind can blow the dust, so it's not solid, it's not like mud caked, it's something the wind can blow. It's al-khashi' min al-ard. It's the part of the earth that is easy and light and can be moved and stirred up. So one Arabic scholar summarizes the meaning in this definition. So I'm going to give you his definition. I thought it was a really good way of summarizing the meaning. He said, and then we're going to look at a couple other definitions. He says, hubutu, the definition of the root word, he calls this particular scholar, I think his name is Muhammad Hassan Jabal, if I recall correctly, and his book is called Al-Mu'jam Al-Ishtiqaqi. So it's a dictionary that's focused primarily on the etymology of the words. Like, where did the words come from? How did they derive in Arabic? And he always tries to look at what he calls al-ma'na al-mihwari, or the pivotal meaning. What is the pivotal or the central meaning of the word? So he says, al-ma'na al-mihwari of khasha'a, the pivotal central meaning of the verb khasha'a is hubutu ma sha'nuhu al-irtifa'u wal-ghiladu, which means the decline or the lessening or the falling or the collapsing, hubuts. So you use the word hubut. Hubut can mean all of those things, like the going down, the decline, the lessening, the decrease, the collapsing. Hubut. Hubutu ma sha'nuhu al-irtifa'u. It is the falling down or the decline or the lessening or the decreasing of what would normally be elevated or raised up, or what would normally be rough and rugged. So you see that from the previous two usages, because you have a wall that collapses, so it would normally be upright. It's called khashia when it collapses. And you have earth that could be solid, but when it's walaikum salam, but when it's loose and able to be stirred up, then we call that khashia. So he summarizes that in this definition by saying that it is for anything whose normal nature is to either be elevated or it is to be rough and rugged, for that thing to soften or to go down or something of that nature, to collapse. Mufakhada. I have to think about that. Mufakhada, fakhada. I'm not sure if I don't think that's a Quranic word. From fakhid, from the thigh, from fakhid, but mufakhada, it's a reciprocal word. So, oh, I see what you're doing. Yeah, I got it now. I figured it out. Hannah, go ahead. You can go ahead and mute that person too. I know what mufakhada is by the second thing you said. Rada al-kabir. They thought they was slick. They tried to slip one in on Ben right there. So the basic meaning of khasha'a, the basic meaning, they tried to slide one in, like they were asking an Arabic question. Alhamdulillah. We try to keep our live. For those who might, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. For those who might be new to joining our live, we try to keep our live with a positive vibe. We're not here to argue or debate or nothing like that. So we got two moderators, and they just go ahead and mute people if they come for argumentation, because that's not really what we're here for. Everyone, the Quran tells us, La ikraha fid din. There's no compulsion in religion. So we're not here to convince anyone that they're wrong and we're right. We're not here to do that. We're only here to share information. And whoever's interested in partaking of that information, alhamdulillah, ahlan wa sahlan, marhaban, you're welcome. And if they're not, alhamdulillah, they don't have to be here. It's fine. But we're not here to get upset or angry or debate or argue. That's not our purpose. So, and we go live every day, 2 p.m. Eastern time. So back to the class. Sorry about that interruption, but they caught me off guard because I thought they were asking about an Arabic question, and I figured out that they were subtly trying to throw something in there. So, so the primary meaning he gives, al-ma'na al-mihwari, the pivotal or the central meaning of this is for something to go down that normally would be elevated, or for something to lessen in roughness that would normally be rough. You follow? So that's the central meaning that this particular scholar gave, this Arabic scholar. So it doesn't just mean something low in and of itself. It's from what he's saying anyway. What he's saying is something that would normally be elevated, right? You lower it. Or something that would normally be rough and rugged becomes softened, okay? Or decreased in its roughness and ruggedness, right? So that gives us right there some understanding. Some eroded, maybe you could say eroded. So that gives us right there, from the Arabic meanings of it, that gives us a little bit of understanding of what we mean when we say khushu'. You see how when we go into the deeper meanings, it automatically alleviates some of the misconceptions, because when, as I said in the beginning, usually when we talk about this concept, people talk about things like concentration and not allowing other thoughts to distract you. But from the basic Arabic meanings of the word, those meanings aren't found in the root meaning. The root meaning simply is to lower something that would normally be elevated, or to soften or decrease the roughness in something that would normally be more rough or rugged. That's the basic meaning. Now let's look at a couple other scholars. Ibn Faris in Maqais al-Lugha, he said he summed up the whole meaning of this word in one word, and then he gave a phrase to explain the one word. He said this word means at-tatamun, which basically just means lowering. Okay, so he explained it in one word, lowering. And then he gave an example that we might say about a person, khasha'a. We might say that person, khasha'a, they did this word, this verb, إِذَا تَطَامَنَ وَتَأْطَأَ رَأْسَهُ, when they lower and bend their head. So he's saying, from the Arabic meaning of it, if I say, khasha'a rajulu, that person over there, khasha'a, what I mean is, they lowered their head. That's what he's saying the meaning of it is. To lower and to bend one's head. Or just to lower it in general. A very famous Arabic dictionary, Lisan al-Arab, explained khasha'a in the following way. He said, رَمَى بِبَصَرِهِ نَحْوَ الْأَرْضِ وَغَدَّهُ وَخَفَضَ صَوْتَهُ. He said that khasha'a means he directed his sight towards the ground, وَغَدَّهُ, and he lowered it, وَخَفَضَ صَوْتَهُ, and he lowered his voice. Okay, so he said khasha'a is to look towards the ground and to lower your sight and to lower your voice. But you notice a commonality in all of those definitions. They all centered around lowering, right? And also a lot of them centered around physical things. Lowering the eyes, lowering the head, stuff like that. And that's really important, because you'll see as we go to some of the verses in the Quran that quite a few verses of the Quran apply khasha'a to physical things. Now, that doesn't mean it's only applied to that, because there are verses that talk about qulub, hearts. But my point is, that in and of itself shows you that the way that we normally talk about this topic is a little bit limited, because we only usually hear khushu' talked about as far as the internal, the mental state. We never really hear it talked about as far as the physical state. Okay, so now let's go to some verses that use this word, and let's see the context. So chapter 20, verse 108. chapter 20, verse 108. Yeah, I like that. The ultimate khushu is the frontal lobe. Yeah, because, see, even though what I just said, the Arabic definitions mention physical aspects of this, and there's quite a few verses that also support that, but the physical can be a metaphor for the mental, what we're supposed to do mentally, right? And that's why I like what you said about the frontal lobe, because there's a lowering, right? It's not necessarily just concentration, but we're going to come around to thinking about a deeper way to explain it. But first, we're going step by step. I want to introduce you to some of the Arabic terminology, and then I want to show you some of the verses, and then we're going to try to see if we can give a comprehensive definition of it and how we can apply it. So, in 20:108, this verse is talking about the Day of Judgment, and he says here, يَوْمَئِذٍ يَتَّبِعُونَ الدَّاعِيَ لَا عِوَجَ لَهُ. On that day they will follow the caller. لَا عِوَجَ لَهُ. There is no iwaj for that caller. There will be no crookedness. وَخَشَعَتِ الْأَصْوَاتُ لِلرَّحْمَنِ فَلَا تَسْمَعُ إِلَّا هَمْسًا. He said, and the voices khasha'at. So this is where's my other book at? I usually have it right here. Oh, there it is. I wanted to see how he translates this. So this is one of the verses that teach us or support the idea that a large part of the discussion of khushu' in the Quran is applied to physical things. So I'm curious how he translates it here. He's probably going to say lower if I had to guess. So 2108. I just like to see how he translates it sometimes. Yeah, that's what I thought. He explained it as being low. So he says the Quran uses the word khasha'at wa khasha'at al-aswatu. The voices will be lowered. Okay? The voices will be lowered, but it uses the word khasha'at. So khasha'at is the feminine verb from khasha'a. So the voices will be lowered للرحمن, for Ar-Rahman. فَلَا تَسْمَعُ إِلَّا هَمْسًا. So you will not hear except hamsan. What is hamsan? In Arabic, the word hams, al-hams, means a sawtul khafi, a very hidden or quiet sound. So basically, like, you will only hear a whisper. Okay? So he uses the word khasha'a here to speak of the lowering of the voice, right? So it's something, as he said in the definition that we read earlier, it's something that would normally be elevated or raised, because you would normally raise your voice to make yourself heard. But here he says, khasha'at al-aswat. The voices will be lowered. فَلَا تَسْمَعُ إِلَّا هَمْسًا. So you won't hear anything except a whisper. Okay? So that's one usage of the word. Another usage of the word is in 68:43. So 68:43. 68:43. Okay? And actually I'm going to go to the verse before it. So the verse before it, also the context seems like it's talking about the Day of Judgment. So the verse before it says, يَوْمَ يُكْشَفُ عَنْ سَاقٍ وَيُدَعَوْنَ إِلَى السُّجُودِ فَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُونَ. Okay? The day, so if we translate this literally, the day when the shin will be uncovered. What does that mean? So, just out of curiosity. Yeah, see, he doesn't even translate it like that. Yeah, so, yukshafu an saq. The day when the shin will be uncovered. Okay? What does that mean? Yawma yukshafu an saq. So, in Arabic, one of the meanings, like if you go to like different books of tafsir and stuff, they talk about how this is, one of the meanings that's given anyway, is that this is a metaphor. That this is a metaphor used in the Arabic language for rolling up one's clothes in preparation for something difficult. right? So it's like, there's something. Imagine if you're going into the woods or something, and you come across some water that you have to go across, and you're like, man, let me pull up my garment, right? Alhamdulillah, thank you. Let me pull up my pants so they don't get wet. So in preparation for something difficult, you're rolling up your pants, right? So this is a metaphor. This is one of the explanations that's given for it. Yukshafu an saq. The shin will be uncovered, meaning this will be a very difficult day, in other words. So it's using this statement metaphorically. So a couple examples are given in some of the books of tafsir. For example, Qurtubi says, he brings an Arabic saying to explain this word. So if we say in Arabic, شَمَّرَتِ الْحَرْبُ عَنْ سَاقِهَا, that if we say, like rolling up your sleeves, it's the Arabic way. Like in English, we usually say, roll up your sleeves and get to work. Right, exactly. But in Arabic, there's a different proverb for that, but it's the same idea. It's a proverb for undertaking something difficult. So Qurtubi brings the saying in Arabic where we say, شَمَّرَتِ الْحَرْبُ عَنْ سَاقِهَا, which means the war uncovered its shin. What does that mean? It means it became very intense. It doesn't literally mean the war has shins, right? The war uncovered its shin or exposed its shin. Abu Ubaidah, another scholar of language, said that when war or any situation becomes intense, it is said, كَشَفَ الْأَمْرُ عَنْ سَاقِهِ. كَشَفَ الْأَمْرُ عَنْ سَاقِهِ. That this matter has uncovered its shin. It is, and there's some other explanations that's given for this too. Like saqu shay means asluhu alladhi bihi qiwamuhu. That the saq of something is its foundation, because your leg is your foundation. So another explanation that's given for this is saqu shay, the saq of something is the foundation of it that helps it stand, right? So in other words, here another explanation that's given for this is yukshafu an saq, yani yukshafu an al-haqa'iq, means that the realities will become uncovered, like the foundations of things will become uncovered on that day, right? So whichever way we explain it, it seems to be something metaphorical for either the difficulty and the intensity of that day, or the realities of that day becoming uncovered. And Allah knows best. So he says, يَوْمَ يُكْشَفُ عَنْ سَاقٍ, the day when the shin will become uncovered. Oh, I meant to read his note. Because see here in his translation, he actually translates it as on the day when there is severe affliction. And then he has a footnote that says the meaning of kashf an saq has been explained, and he refers to 2744. And then he adds a couple commentaries that say on the day when there is a severe affliction, right? Or when the truth of the matter is laid bare, which is basically what I just explained, right? So then he says, yukshafu, yawma yukshafu an saqin wa yuda'una ila sujudi fala yastati'un. The veil will be removed, right? That's why one of the explanations could be that it means it's uncovering the foundations of things, the reality of things. That could be another explanation. And there could be many other explanations, potentially, because no one can fully encompass the meanings of the words of Allah. Just given a couple possibilities from what some of the scholars of Arabic have said about this phrase. Just because when we run across this phrase, we might read it and it might be confusing. So I wanted to give a couple possibilities of what it could mean. So he said, يَوْمَ يُكْشَفُ عَنْ سَاقٍ وَيُدَعُونَ إِلَى السُّجُودِ فَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُونَ. The day when the saq will be uncovered, the shin will be uncovered, the realities will be uncovered, or it will be a very difficult day. وَيُدَعُونَ إِلَى السُّجُودِ فَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُونَ. And they will be called to as-sujud, but they will not be able. And then in verse 43, خَاشِعَةً أَبْصَارُهُمْ. Their sight, their vision will be khashi'ah. It will be down, right? So let's see how he translates it. Yeah, their looks cast down. Their looks cast down. So see again, khashi'ah is this time applied to vision, absar. They'll be looking down. But perhaps that's a description, right, of the intensity of that day. That's why I read the verse before it, because it goes with yukshafu an saq. That day will be very intense. So then on that day, they will be khashi'atan absaruhum. Because he says tarhaquhum dhilla. Right after that, he says khashi'atan absaruhum tarhaquhum dhilla. That their looks will be cast down and humiliation will cover them. So this helps us to get another feel for the word khashi'ah and khushu', that it's in a very difficult situation that humbles you. Follow me? And that makes you look down. Think about that. Let's just put it in some modern terms. Let's say if you were called to meet an official, whether it's an official in government or you had to go to court or whatever it was, like you were in some trouble and you had to go meet someone, right? You're not going to walk into that place generally like you walk into a store to go shopping. You walk in the store and you're just like, oh, you're looking around, right? But you go into a place like that, it's going to humble you. You know, you're going to be humble. You're going to probably cast your eyes down. You know, your demeanor is going to reflect the gravity of the situation. The principal's office, yeah. Your demeanor is going to reflect the gravity of the situation. So that's the feel that I get from this verse. Because, yeah, out of respect, humility. So now, the more we read these verses, I feel like we're getting a better feel for the word khasha'a. That it is a state of lowering oneself. Whether it's your eyes or your voice or your head. It's a state of humility and lowering oneself in the presence of something intense, something great, something humbling. Follow me? So it's not this explanation that it just means you have to concentrate, right? I think that takes away so much from the explanation of it. Just focusing on that. Okay, let's go to the next verse, 59:21. So the next verse, 59:21. I gotta plug my phone in a minute too. It's at 13%. I don't want to. We still got about 20 minutes. I thought it might make it through the whole live, but I don't know if it's gonna make it. We'll see. It's out of acknowledgement of what's above you, right? Yeah, exactly. See, all of these words, all of these different ways that we're explaining it are sometimes, and you've probably heard me say this before. Sometimes when we study words in the Quran, one of the reasons why it's good to go verse by verse, or at least a nice selection of verses to see how that word is used, one of the reasons that's a really good thing to do. For one, as we always talk about, the Quran has its own dictionary, so it explains itself. So obviously, like, that's the primary reason we go from verse to verse. But there's another reason too. Another benefit is all these different ways that we're trying to describe it in English are all good, right? And they're all different aspects of how we can describe it. Even in Arabic, the way they describe it are all different aspects, and they're all good, and they help us get a feel of the meaning. But I really believe when we're studying words from the Quran that we want to start off there so we can get some understanding. But as we read the verses, what ends up happening is our understanding shifts from being intellectual to feeling the meaning. You get what I'm saying? So the more we read these verses about khasha'a, then you develop a feel for what it means, as opposed to just an intellectual understanding or trying to like explain it in words, which is often difficult, right? Not that the words aren't important, but the more we read the verses, I think we get a feel for what it means, right? So look at this verse here. So he says, لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون. He says, لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل. If this Quran had been sent down upon a mountain. So number one, what is the example? See, this verse is a method. It's a metaphor. Wa alaikum salam. A metaphor, a proverb, however we want to describe it. So it's an example. So we want to think in those terms, that this is an example for something. So number one, what's one of the things Alhamdulillah. Yeah. What's one of the metaphors that a mountain is used for in the Quran? So one of the things that it's used for is reminding us of how small we are, right? Because in 1737 he says, "Wala tamshi fil ardi maraha." Don't walk in the earth feeling like self-important. Innaka lan takhriq al-ard. You will never be able to penetrate the earth. Walan tablugh al-jibala tula. And you will never be able to reach the mountains in height. So the mountains represent something that's very high that we as human beings can never be as big as that mountain, right? So number one, when we read this here, لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل, had we sent this Quran down upon a mountain, the first thing that brings to mind is, why is he telling us, had we sent this Quran down upon a mountain? Because in another verse, or at least potentially one way to think about it, not 17:110, that was 17, the verse that I just quoted was 17, hold on, I'm going to get it for you. 1737. 1737. There is a verse in 17, it might be 110, about khushu too. So I wasn't sure if you were talking about that one or the one that I just quoted. But لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل, had we sent this Quran down upon a mountain. Okay, so number one, a mountain, that's okay. A mountain is something. Remember, some of the definition of khushu was what, right? What he said was the primary al-ma'na al-mihwari, the pivotal definition. Hubutu ma sha'nuhu al-irtifa'. It's for something to go down whose normal, yeah, it'll be uploaded inshallah. I'm screen recording it right now. The one from yesterday is already there. He said it's to go down, it's the going down of anything whose normal state is to be elevated. That's khushu'. The going down of anything that its normal state is to be high and elevated. So number one, he tells us about a mountain, which normally is something that's going to be elevated, and which Allah uses in another place in the Quran in 1737 to remind us to humble ourselves. Don't walk in the earth in a state of self-importance, because you'll never be as big as this mountain. So he says, وَلَوْ أَنزَلْنَا هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ لَوْ أَنزَلْنَا, not wa, لَوْ أَنزَلْنَا هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ عَلَى جَبَلٍ, if we would have sent down this Quran upon a mountain, لَرَأَيْتَهُ خَاشِعًا, we would have seen it to be, he said, you would see it to be khashi'an. As big as this mountain is, as huge as this mountain is, the fact that you would never be able to reach the height of this mountain, if we sent this Quran down upon a mountain, you would see it being khashi'an. You would see it lowering itself down. So that goes with, see, that supports the meaning that this scholar, subhanAllah, that supports this meaning that this scholar gave, hubutu ma sha'nuhu al-irtifa'. That khushu' is the lowering of something that normally its normal state, its default state is to be elevated. So Allah tells us, if this Quran had been sent down upon a mountain, you would have seen it khashi'an. You would have seen it going down, okay? Humbling itself, crumbling, however you want to explain the word khashi'an. So that tells us that we can't reach the mountains in height, as the other verse that we went to said, right? We can't reach the mountains in height. He said, "In walan tablugh al-jibala tula," you will never reach the mountains in height. So if that's the case, if the Quran had been sent down upon a mountain and it would go down, it would humble itself, it would crumble, right? Then what should be our state? See, this is a metaphor. What should be our state with the Quran? The Quran should be an experience that makes us lower ourselves. And we can think about that in a lot of different ways. But just give me 1 second. I'm going to pause. All right, we back. So I just want to make sure we didn't lose the live. So this verse is a really beautiful verse to start to get deeper into the idea of what really is khushu'. Okay? No, I did. I unpaused it. Yeah, I started recording again. Thank you for reminding me, though. I did. So this verse is a verse that really helps us get deeper into the meaning of khushu'. So you see how we proceeded in our study. So we started from the language meanings. What does the language, alhamdulillah, what does the language meanings, what do they mean? Khasha'a is for something to go down that normally would be elevated, right? And just in general, going down or lessening something or decreasing the roughness of something, right? So we started with that. And then we went through certain verses that show that khushu'a could apply to the voices. Khasha'at al-aswat, the voices could be lowered. The sight can be lowered. Khashi'atan absaruhum, their visions were lowered. So we led up to this verse. That's why I put everything in that order, because I wanted to lead up to this verse to show how comprehensive khushu'a is. That it's not just something, a lot of times people think of it only in one area, which is the physical 5 daily prayers, and or if they pray anything like extra, those prayers, right? But they don't generally think about it. I'm not saying no one does, because there are people that you might find talk about it like that. But in general, when you hear it in the popular discourse, you don't generally hear it talked about in a comprehensive way. So that's why I put these in order to bring us up to this point, to see that the mountain is a metaphor for how the Quran should be responded to. That the Quran should be responded to by being khashi'an, by a complete lowering of oneself and giving in to the Quran, right? So that could, once you start thinking about it like that, you can open up the door to think about that in so many different ways. But one way to sum that up, perhaps, is to try to achieve, you could say submission. That's why I said there's a lot of different ways you can think about it. But one of the ways to think about it is to try to achieve stillness, right? The lowering of oneself to make one's ego still, to make one's desire to not submit still, to make one's thoughts still, like a stillness that we're trying to achieve, where we're trying to be receptive to the information that the Quran is bringing to us. So we're trying to achieve a state of stillness, humility, lowering ourselves, lowering our guard, humbleness, lowering our defenses, right? All of that can perhaps be thought of as part of the meaning. Just a complete lowering is what we're trying to achieve, right? Because a lot of times when it comes to learning things, even, right? When it comes to learning things, sometimes if we have our defenses up, right, that stops us from learning. So part of learning is to lower our defenses. That's part of what it means to be humble, right? Is to lower our defenses, to lower our guard, to be vulnerable and open to what the Quran has to tell us, to what the Quran has to offer to us, right? But let's continue to read the verse, because we didn't finish the verse. And then we're going to go to the next verse. He says, لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله. That if this Quran had been sent down upon a mountain, you would have seen it humbling itself, khashi'an, lowering itself, and mutasaddi'an. What does mutasaddi'an mean? Okay, so let me see how he translates this, just out of curiosity. Then I'll explain the word in Arabic, but I like to see how he explains it. So he says splitting asunder. Yeah, that's not bad. So the root word sada'a, alhamdulillah, I love you too. So the root word for mutasaddian, which is being translated as splitting, or he said splitting asunder, the root word actually means, or at least according to one Arabic dictionary, so one Arabic dictionary explained it as the splitting of something that is solid is called sada. The splitting of something that is solid. So he says, لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا. So if this Quran had came down upon a mountain, you would have seen it lowering itself and mutasaddian, splitting. Now, what does it mean, splitting? So, we would think our immediate thought might be, oh, that means the mountain is crumbling, like it's breaking apart. But perhaps there's another way to think about it, because the word sada means to split something that's solid. And what is a split? It's an opening. In fact, in another dictionary, if I'm recalling this correctly, I think it was Ibn Faris, he said that sada means infiraju fi shay, or something to that effect, like the opening or the splitting in something. So sada perhaps is referring to something opening up, because what is a split? It's an opening. It's something solid, you split, and there's now an opening in it, right? So perhaps this whole verse is telling us, it's a metaphor, it's guiding us to how to think about our interaction with the Quran. That had it been sent down on this high thing, because there's two things about the mountain, right? It's this big solid structure and it's high. And he mentioned two qualities that would relate to its interaction with the Quran. Khashi'an mutasaddian. Oh yeah, subhanAllah, I like that for sure. Khashi'an mutasaddian. So it's a high elevated thing, so it's khashi'an, it lowers itself in response to the Quran. It's a solid thing, right? So it's mutasaddian, it opens up, it splits and opens up. So what does the splitting and the open up refer to? Perhaps that refers to allowing the teachings of the Quran to permeate, to go into it. That's why it splits and opens up. So it lowers oneself and it splits and opens up and allows things to go into it. Or it could even be the other way, that because of its humbling itself and accepting the teachings of the Quran, it would split in the sense of things would come out of it. Things would grow out of it, right? And what's interesting about this word sada that's being used here to describe the mountain, yeah, at the core too. At the core of the mountain, you mean, is what I'm assuming you mean. What's interesting about this word is in 86:12, the earth is described with the same exact word. Okay? So in 86:12, he says, Wal ardi that is sada. Wal ardi that is sada. And the earth, which is that is sada. That's a hard one to translate to English. It's that is sada. It has the quality of splitting, basically, right? So let me see how he translates this. He says, and the earth opening. Yeah, that's a loose way of saying it, and the earth opening. But the literal meaning is that is sada. So that, the word that's why I said it's we do these at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Eastern time. Alhamdulillah, for sure. We're glad that you can join. So the literal meaning of 86:12, yeah, right. The literal meaning is that is sada. That, so actually, yeah, exactly. No, for sure, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to get at. That's what I'm getting at. But let me show you the exact word that it's described with. It's called that asada. Okay? Because it's really hard to translate in English. Like literally, I mean. That's why I was trying to see how he did it. So in Arabic, it's that asada. That is sada. Okay? And he translates it just by saying, and the earth opening. Okay, that's not wrong, but he's translating it in just like a general way because it's hard to put that into English. Because what I gave you, that is sada. What that literally means is that means the owner or the possessor of something. So the earth that possesses the quality of sada. That's the literal meaning. The earth that possesses the quality of sada. So you see how that's like awkward to put into English? So that's why when he translates it here, he just says, and the earth opening. Because in general, that is what it means. It means the earth is splitting, like different explanations that were given in the comments. Flowers blossoming, things growing from the cracks, etc., right? But when you look at the literal Arabic is even deeper than that because it describes it as That is sada. That the earth possesses this quality. It has the quality of splitting. Okay? So that's beautiful because the same word that the mountain was described in its reaction to the Quran, mutasaddian, the same root word is used to describe the splitting of the earth. That is sada. That the earth has the quality of sada, that it splits, it opens up, and perhaps things grow out of it, the rain goes into it, it's permeable, right? It's permeable. Things can go into it, things can come out of it. Rain and seeds and stuff can go into it. It's permeable. It's not like solid rock where nothing can enter it. It has sada. That is sada. Its characteristic is this opening and splitting. How beautiful. That's amazingly beautiful. And that's how Allah described in the previous verse that we just read. That's how he described the mountain if the Quran was sent upon it. You would see it khashi'an mutasaddian. You would see it lowering and splitting. Follow, see why I connected those together? Because the splitting of the earth is a reference to, alhamdulillah, the splitting of the earth is a reference to growing, to growth, right? To things coming out and things, the earth being permeable for things to go in. So if you would have saw this, or if this Quran would have came down upon a mountain, you would have seen it lowering or humbling itself and splitting open. You would have seen growth. You would see the growth that comes from the Quran. You would see the Quran being able to permeate within it. Follow? So that's a metaphor for how we should be with the Quran. Exactly, nature is an example for us, for sure. That's why I love any word that we're studying in the Quran. I try to find verses in the Quran that use that word in reference to the natural world. And I think that's the best way to explain that word. Yeah, like how life flows outward from the earth. Exactly. So the Quran, if it had came down upon a mountain, you would have seen that happening. Alhamdulillah, for sure. It will flow out. Exactly. In fact, so to support that point, what you're saying, let's go to another verse real quick. I didn't write this one down because I wasn't sure if we were going to get to this one. So this verse here, this is 1594. 1594. And this will be the last verse that we leave off for today. We're gonna pick this topic up tomorrow though. So this isn't a one-day topic because there's a few more verses we still need to go over. So this will be a topic that we'll go over for a couple of days. So 1594, this will be the last one that we'll cover for the day. He says, "Fasda' bima tu'mar." Fasda' bima tu'mar. So I want to show you how beautiful these connections are. But first, out of curiosity, as I always do, let's see how he handles this translation. Okay, he says, "Declare openly what you are commanded." Declare openly. Again, that's not necessarily a bad translation. However, I want to show you something. So, the earth, back up to the mountain. He said if the Quran had came down upon a mountain, you would see it to be mutasaddian. So I want to write all three things here. So if the Quran had came down upon a mountain, you would have seen it khashi'an mutasaddian. You would have seen it lowering or humbling itself, and mutasaddian, splitting. Mutasaddian. So I'm going to write mutasaddian. And then, puzzle time. I forgot about that. I'm like, what just happened? Okay. It took my comment away, didn't it? Yep. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna write it again. So the first verse the verse that we covered about the mountain said you would see it mutasaddian, splitting, right? And then the earth was described as what? That is sada. Something that possesses splitting. Like from its qualities is splitting. And then this verse says, yeah, I know it. I'm typing it as if I'm active. That's so stupid. Walaikum salam. And then the verse that we just covered, or the verse that we're on now, 1594, says, Fasda' bima tu'mar, which is being translated by some as proclaim openly what you are commanded. But the Arabic is Fasda'. Okay, so you can see all three of them here. Mutasaddi'an, that is sada, fasda. All three of those phrases come from the same root, which is sada'a, which means to split something that's solid. So the first one, mutasaddi'an, is if you saw the Quran coming down. I'm sorry, if the Quran had been sent down upon a mountain, you would see it khashi'an mutasaddi'an. You would see it lowering itself and splitting. The next one, the earth, is described as wal ardi that is sada, that the earth possesses sada. It possesses the characteristic of opening up and splitting. So it produces growth and it's permeable for things to go in it, like seeds and water. Now the last one, when it's telling us to, basically loosely translated, to proclaim what you have been ordered, right? It uses the word fasda. Yeah, to split something that is solid. Fasda, which is from the same root word. So in other words, so how some people would translate this is fasda bima tu'mar, 1594. They say proclaim what you have been ordered. But if we take the literal meaning of it, as has been being explained in these other words, mutasaddi'an, that is sada, to split something solid, fasda' bima tu'mar, split open with what you have been commanded. That's beautiful because it gives the feel of as if you are in an incubation stage. Yeah, you are in an incubation stage. You are studying. We go through these different stages, right? We go through stages where we might be active and doing things, and then we go through stages of incubation and stillness, where we need time to reflect or study or ponder or just time to ourselves. When we go through that stage, that reflection stage, that meditation stage, in that stillness is growth, right? In fact, one person said, I'm trying to think how he said this. I thought this was beautiful. He said, he actually flipped a common notion that a lot of us have. He said, people a lot of times will say, you can't get something from nothing. But he said, actually, the correct way to think about that is, you can't have something without nothing. Means you have to have a period of nothing to get something. You have to have a period of absence or stillness for things to grow and develop. Okay? So this verse 1594, comparing it to and using the same word that's referred to the earth, that is sada, that the earth splits, right? This verse tells us fasda, you also split, you also open up, as if you are the earth, or you are a seed in, like the stillness between notes, exactly. You are a seed in the earth in the incubation stage, and you go through these different stages. But when you experience a period of growth, now there's also a period of time. When you experience this period of growth underground, there's a period of time when now you have to come out and open up and split with what you have been commanded. Bring your growth to the world. Let people see your growth. Let people see the beautiful flowers that you've been growing when they weren't watching, right? Fasda' bima tu'mar. So yes, could we say 1594, you can translate it as proclaim openly? Yeah, right? We can say that. That's not a bad or a wrong translation. But when you look deeper into the words, it's so beautiful that the same word that is being told to you and to me and to all of us to come out from your shell is the same word that is used for the earth and its action of splitting. That's amazing, I think, and that's beautiful, and I think that's very poetic. So hopefully, inshallah, we're on track to understanding some deeper ideas of the word khushu and khasha'a and all its different variants. Yeah, and inshallah we'll pick this back up tomorrow for sure. So hopefully I see you guys here tomorrow, inshallah. Thank you guys as always. I love when you guys come. I will prepare this to be uploaded. It probably won't be uploaded until sometime tonight because I got to get ready for work and stuff. Starting yesterday, all these lives will be on YouTube. I started screen recording yesterday. I don't know why I never thought of that before. So this one should be available sometime tonight, inshallah. The one from yesterday is already on YouTube. Assalamu alaikum. See you guys later. Let me pause.